Good morning and welcome to the Finance and Advisory Board budget meeting, March 9th, and call the meeting to order at 9:07. Before we proceed, welcome department heads. We'll be introducing you as each time you come up to present your budget. But for now, I want to go around the table here for those at home who may not know, those at home who may be watching and may not know who we are. Mike Farrell, our town administrator, Reg Tardif, Nazarene Fanouf, I'm Sandy Garrity, Robin O'Malley, Jim Lacey, and Ed Doby. And first up is the assessors. Welcome.
Good morning.
If you could introduce yourselves, please.
Tom Barabee, Chairman of the Board, and Jay Ferrera, the Assistant Assessor.
Great, thank you. We're on tab 5. Okay.
Well, the short version is that we are looking for essentially the same budget that we had last year, less $10,000 that we will not need for recertification because we tried last year,
Okay.
or in this current year. With that said, there's a slight increase in the salary line item. The number we were given by the Treasurer's Office reflects an increase that's in the contract for our clerk. And I believe that we're also budgeting for an increase for Jay as well.
Right.
With that said, I don't know what that exact percentage is. We were just trying to figure that out. It's somewhere around 3%, I believe.
2.5.
2.5?
Yep.
Okay. So the number we're using for the salary line item is the number that we were provided by the Treasurer's Office.
Okay.
As every department is.
Right,
Right.
right.
And with that said, the remaining portion of our budget is the expense line item, which shows a decrease of $10,000 from last year. So last year it was $45,245. This year it's $35,325.
Right, and for 35,325?
It says 34, so it's.
Right, I think we're
That's a
gonna,
little
we've
different.
got,
Yeah,
Mike is gonna have some updates for us, so we'll just make,
okay.
we'll just make notes as we go along.
Yep.
So that was, it's $600 difference, not a big deal.
Yeah.
Right, because you did the research, and I remember I asked you a number of years ago, there's no way of leveling that out over time, is there?
We potentially could. The problem that we have is that the work that's required for recertification has to take place around the year of the recertification. So if you were to budget something 3 years ahead of time for recertification, we potentially wouldn't be able to spend the money. So at the end of the fiscal year, it goes into the free cash. So it's, I'm not sure if it's a practical thing for us to budget it 3 years in advance.
Right.
Okay.
Certainly the year before, we do get into the work required for the recertification, so it makes sense for us to spread that over 2 years as opposed to the entire 3.
So I think years ago when we were really tight, we were looking to see if we could spread that out. But I think, didn't we have discussions, Mike, before about if there's a way to actually have similar to like a reserve fund for those, items that just kind of go up and down each year, so at least we know that we've got a pocket of money that, when Jan has extra elections or anything like that, or is that something we really?
I remember us discussing it, but there's no real way to
No real way to do it?
do
Okay.
it legally.
Oh, that.
There's that issue.
There is that.
Well, you could do some kind of revolving account, but you have 8 million of them, right?
It wouldn't qualify as a
It would-
revolving.
Oh, it
account.
wouldn't qualify,
That's why I
okay.
said legally.
Oh, okay.
We,
All right.
we have a tendency of making illegal
accounts.
revolving accounts.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. All right, anybody have any questions for the assessors?
This is in the guidelines, I'd say.
Yeah.
I have a general one. I think I posed this last year, and it's not specifically aimed at Tom, but when I was going through the budget here, I just saw, the phone situation, and whether or not you use your own personal phones or whether these phones are rented, by the town, or how does this all work?
They have a landline and they get charged for that. I don't believe you guys have cell phones, town cell
No.
phones.
Although we do use our own phones, we don't charge the town for it.
Okay.
This
So
line
just a
item for phones, I
landline
believe, is our
that this
contribution to the overall.
$1,400 is for. That's just for the landline.
Right, that's our department's contribution to the phone
Okay.
system that the town uses.
All right, okay, thank you.
All right, great. Well, thank you for coming in. Sorry, grab a cup of coffee for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Next up, Deb?
Sure, do you want?
Board of Health?
Sure.
6. I know, I'm sorry. We're in tab 6 now. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Deborah Rogers. I'm the health agent for the Board of Health.
Great, welcome.
Thank you.
So salaries are going to be the same, the 2.5%.
That's correct.
Okay. And anything wildly different, Deb?
Our expenses are identical, the exact same as
Same.
last year. Yes, correct. We haven't increased anything. The only thing is that we're the slots on this new form, so if you had any questions of what they were, because I believe in the past, we kind of wrote in what exactly it was. So for instance, where it says other supplies, the $1,500 other supplies, that's actually for our pond testing for the American Legion pond. I didn't know where to put it, so I just put it there. And same with the groundskeeping supplies, that's our household hazardous waste day that we subsidize with residents, and we have a very good outcome on that every year.
What about the other purchase services, that 18,000?
Okay, see, that's the land cap monitoring that's mandated by the state.
Still can't get out of that.
I can't, and I'm trying.
Jeez, every
Every
year.
I've done some really sweet talking to the state too, but I'm hoping, we had to have 5 consecutive years. We had a year that was glitched, they allowed it. Now, we've had 5 excellent consecutive years, so next fall, we would be going back again and trying to get them to do an annual, going through the same thing in Newbury, and they're not quite biting it. They want it. They want to do it quarterly versus annually. So if we can get them to allow us to test on an annual basis, that would drop that down, 75%.
Like, how long does this testing go on? I mean, that dump has been capped for how many years?
Well, it's since what, 1999, I believe, or
Yeah, I mean-
something like that. It's just, I think it's such a big land cap that they cover, and it's got so much gases underneath the ground. All that breakdown's going to take many, many years. So it's in DEP's hands when they determine how often. So again, we'll keep going with them on seeing if we can do it annual.
What if they buy twice a year from a quarterly?
I was wondering that.
Well, we'll go with anything they'll allow. I mean, we're pushing for the annual, but if they haven't even allowed that. So you're right, and we can do that. The thing is we may have to get into a consultant to determine, because they send us a pack about that thick with all, the explaining all the testings and everything, and it's basically for a chemist or something. So if we can get a consultant to brief that to them, that may help us also. So we'll be working on that this year and present it maybe next fall. But until then, that is our pricing. I mean, if you look at the numbers though, and you go back a few years ago, we used to pay $33,000.
Oh, yeah, you gotta,
We got it really down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it was.
And technically, it cost us about 15,000 now, and then the rest was and it just went up actually to 16,500, and then the other well, there was 3,000 extra in there that was actually for the mowing of because we have to mow it. They mandate us to mow it twice a year too. But right now, thanks to Peter Durkee, we have a local gentleman that's actually just mowing it. But we've been keeping that in there because I don't know how long he's gonna keep mowing it, so that's
Is
how
there
it is.
a target number that the state wants for the gases in that land?
Yes, and that's it. And then we
Are
are,
we even
no, we're
close
in,
to it, or-
we are in it. We're in it, but they want to see so many consecutive years of it in it, and then they have the choice to reduce it. So that's what they were waiting for.
Okay.
I know. Unfortunately, it's beyond us unable to, remove that on our own, so.
Okay. Do you see any other issues coming up in regards to your department next year?
No,
Nothing?
hopefully everything will be the same, and everything runs well.
Great, and you're still just for Edward, he's new, you're still working in West Newbury?
The town of Newbury.
Newbury.
Correct.
So shared services, so.
Correct,
so we
yeah,
have
'cause
shared
back years
services.
ago, I was a full-time position, and I had an assistant inspector that was full-time, and when the budgets were cut, we actually negotiated with the town of Newbury, we do half, so we actually cut more than we needed to here, but did 20 hours over here than over there too, so works out very well.
Do you have a medical drop-off now? Do we have one in town for
For needles?
Sharps, for
Sharps,
needles?
we do not. Because we're only a part-time and we don't really have a facility to really be able to do it, we have a list of other places. Raleigh actually takes them for us. We know that there's surrounding other towns that take them too. We also have, we have mail-ins, so you can, for free mail-ins, to mail them back in too. So at this point, we don't have a shop off here.
Okay, what about prescription medicines? Nothing for drop-off?
No, I don't even know.
The police department
I was
does
gonna
have
say, I
one.
don't even know, we
Department's done
don't deal
Yeah,
with the.
I know a lot of laws have changed, like with sharps and things
The
like that.
shops did
Yeah,
change last
yeah.
June, correct, and at this time, the few that we have had call, have negotiated with Raleigh, and people can go over to Raleigh. I know there's one in Haverhill, there's one in Boxford.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. Is there going to be a need, because that's another expense, I know, to be able to get some sort of sharp drop-off? Is there gonna be a required need for us to have that?
Not at this time, no, we
Not at
don't,
this
we're
time.
not required, we're not mandated to provide that service at this time, and because, again, our office isn't open, we don't have a secure place to actually put those. You know, as long as we can give them the state-provided,
Okay.
other issues, so at this time, we're not
Okay.
planning
If
on
we
it.
get any more unfunded mandates, we'll file a complaint with the Office of the Auditor, State Auditor. We have one complaint in there with them already
Okay.
due to police training requirements.
Oh, yeah, is that was in the paper?
And so since we now know that they are proactive and will, you know, at least respond, might not help us this year, but it'll be a help.
Did they respond at all? So far, like
Oh yeah, they have an active
investigation?
investigation going on since August when we made the complaint.
But the state has discontinued support of that, right? Now it's up to the cities and towns to support the police training, right?
That's correct, but I think we have the Chief of Police Association as the prime sponsor. We edged them on, but we didn't want to be the sole target.
Yeah,
So we're
That's a
hiding
really
behind the
good
Chief
word.
of Police badges.
yeah, exactly.
They have guns, we don't.
Gotta do what you gotta do. All right, just keep us posted on something like that, because that would be that would be a
Absolutely.
concern if all of a sudden that, you know, because I mean it's not big bucks, but
Correct.
it's definitely there, and if there's if we need to do something, because that
Right.
it's good if it's a part time, or we can still get, you know, be able to.
And I believe, correct, at this time, they just stated that we had to, and it's on our website too, to provide where they could drop them off. So at this time, they haven't said we had to have a drop-off.
Right.
And because of the security and because we don't really have a spot for it
Right.
at this time. But I will definitely let you know. And
Great.
That's it.
There was one change with their budget. We used to have this, it was just kind of out there under its own category called protective inspections on the expense detail. Over the years, it's the sealer of weights and measures service fee. And
Where is it now?
it's in her budget.
Okay.
They put it in my budget a couple of years ago. They just stuck it there, right?
No, this year was the first year we actually.
Oh, because we've been paying him.
And that's the thing, they pay it out of, but it's not in their budget.
Oh, that's
It's a
crazy.
separate line item, so when we when in the process of changing the chart of accounts,
Yeah.
it's now an expense underneath,
So what's it under?
I was gonna say, well, this is
it's
not
under
a
Board of
change.
Health, and
Yeah,
it would be under
it's not
one of their, purchased, services.
Other purchase services.
Would it go in
No.
our, Mike, would it go in our expense?
Yes,
And it's not in it now?
it is, I moved it.
Oh, but it's not in mine, right? I didn't know about it. Like, it's not in my total figure.
Probably not. What is your total figure?
For the purchases and services?
No, for the total department?
Oh,
Or-
100,362?
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, we have
104, 5.
Okay, so
104.
I'll have to put that in then.
Yeah.
Okay. 1,060.
Sandy?
Mm-hmm.
Could I ask?
Yeah.
you? It's because, yeah, on the cover page, you've got a total of salary and wages of 66,378, and on the next, you've got 62. Is
This-
that the difference there, Mike?
No,
Yeah,
that's-
yeah, it has to be, because mine's 62.
No, he's not in it.
No, I didn't
He's not
put it
salary.
in the salary.
So is that a mistake on this
Yeah.
cover then?
We're gonna be getting some updated sheets as we've gone through some
You know
things,
what,
Gary.
Gary, you are right. That's what, I put it in salary and wages. I didn't update the
Oh,
the
yeah.
personnel page. There's gonna need to be a couple other personnel pages updated.
Okay.
So that will,
These aren't attached to the
so we will put,
spreadsheet.
we'll put that in our budget from now on, Mike, is his.
Yes.
And that's in the salary or expense?
It's in salary.
It's in salary. Okay, so,
Your salary should be 66,378.
okay, so we'll just, from now on, it'll be him, and we have the animal inspector in ours too, so it'll be
Yes.
just like that one, same way. Okay.
Now, does that salary fluctuate at 29.33 for the animal inspector, depending upon?
No, no.
What happens?
I can explain a little bit about her. She's excellent. She's Holly Willard. She's a veterinarian, medical veterinarian. She lives in town. She's a resident. She does all of our rabies clinics. She does all of our barn inspections, all of our stable inspections for all stables. What happens is if anybody who owns any livestock come in, pay a fee for an application for a stable or barn, Holly goes out there on an annual basis, inspects the animals to make sure they have adequate shelter and food and everything. And then we pay her, she gets paid once a month on a monthly basis. That's like the amount that gets divided by a 12-month period. So that's how she gets it. And she's been with us since before me, and I've been here since 1998, so she's been here a long time. She's excellent. And it's actually a great service for people who own stables. They're pretty much paying for it because they pay the fees for them, and it's almost like a nice little veterinarian visit where she's making sure the animals are well taken care of.
And that fund balance, what's that fund for?
What fun.
The fund balance of 12,407?
Title V septic? Is that what you're talking about, Reg?
No, that's not.
No, this is before last page.
Right, your
Talking
revolving
about the
funds.
revolving
Oh,
fund.
revolving one?
abatement.
Is that that could be the loan program?
Septic loan.
Septic loan program. And how that works is, back in, I want to say approximately 1998, the state gave a $100,000 revolving fund for, at that time, it was for low-income loans for, if somebody needed to upgrade their septic system and they couldn't, they couldn't get a loan or low income, then they could come to the Board of Health and apply for a loan. And then get in compliance with Title V. Thank you. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. And then they do a monthly payment over at the Treasurer's Department, and it works out well. And it's a 0 to 5% interest depending on income. There's a chart, and then it's depending the years. If it's a $20,000 loan, it can go up to 20-year loan. If it's $15,000, it's 15-year, and so on. And then and that money works out really well it can work for hardships too, not just for low income. So if, somebody has a hardship where they're unable to get a loan, then they can show documentation that they're unable, but their septic is in failure. And if we have failure, that way they can upgrade their septic and do the same. We do try to also tell them that there's some banks, local banks around actually, that do they do the septic loan program also and offer the same services. So we can help them provide that way also. But it has worked out very well for many residents. And we have a list of them. We put a lien on their property until they pay it off. And we have a list of them. We probably have right now approximately 11 to 12 residents that have that loan program out that has helped them upgrade their septics.
Okay.
And how many are in default?
What's that?
Did you say you put liens on their properties if they don't make their payment?
The lien goes on there until it's paid off. So basically, like if the person was coming in to apply, as soon as they're approved, a lien goes on, the municipal lien saying that they owe that money so that they can't sell or transfer or anything until. So I don't believe anybody's in default right now. I think they're all making their payments. But that basically goes, that would be a question for the treasurers because it goes to them. But I do believe everybody is making a payment. So,
Great. Any questions? Any upcoming events or anything you want to let the public know about?
We're having our household hazardous waste day again this spring. The date is still real preliminary, but we're looking at, possibly the second to third Saturday in June. And it will be on our website. We'll have it on cable. We'll have it everywhere else. But it's probably going to be the second or third Saturday again. We have a very good outcome. Our biggest thing is really reminding people that latex paint is not hazardous waste because people want to bring the latex paint. And we have to turn them down because Clean Harbors does not want the latex. They could take the cover off, dry it out, and dispose of it in their regular trash. So,
And
but
kitty litter. Kitty
kitty litter actually dries
helps
out,
dries it
absolutely. So you see, she knows. But we do have a great outcome. We tell everybody if they can carpool too, because the town where we subsidize, we get charged per vehicle. So if somebody has 2 cans, we're being charged for 2 cans of paint thinner or whatever. Versus if you carpool with your neighbors, we get charged like up to 10 gallons per car. So we tell people to carpool. But we have again, I think we had 117 vehicles last year. We had 140 the year before. So we're still getting many cars throughout that day. So, and that's it.
Great. Thank you, Deb.
All right. Well, thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes, you can.
We've already done, building inspector we did last week, remember? Because he is in DC right now. Conservation, Steve, why don't you come on up?
11. What the numbers
Good morning.
Good morning. Steve Pajamski, Conservation Agent. For the salaries, I just included the number we were given with a 2.5% increase, and the expenses has not changed in a number of years at $3,000. Nothing coming up this year that should be an issue or problem that I see at this point.
So the assistant is still at .4? Are you up and running on the permit program?
I am not.
You're
Not
not.
yet. My understanding is the building department is the only one that's actively
Okay.
trying to proof it first.
Okay, and the plan is for everybody else to come up and running on it.
Yeah, have you had training yet? There, a couple departments have had the training, so we're phasing it in.
Okay.
Whoever has had the training will go next.
Okay.
So
Great.
we are not using it at this time. My regulations are open, though, for modification, so it'll be easy enough to change the fee schedule. Because that can kind of be a pain to change fees when it comes to the regulations.
Okay.
But they are open right now, so it'll be an easy transition once we're in place to change that.
Okay.
Actually, I should do that now, in anticipation of the.
Yeah. I mean, you can change it, but you can always put the effective date at some future date. So that way it's not, if you're not up and running with it, it's not hitting people who are still doing it the same way. Okay, Mike, you would put in here, there's a number of revolving funds for conservation, correct?
Yes.
Can you comment on the negotiating a proposal for the purchase of the conservation restriction on Wheeler Brook Farm?
What would you like to know about just the big
Well, I
picture
know,
concept?
it says here that you received 100, or we have received 150,000, 153,000 grant regarding this conservation acquisition.
There are actually two separate thoughts there. So we did receive a $150,000 grant last year through CPC. 32 acres of land were purchased, Driftway Farm, or Driftway Conservation Area, up off of Northern Wells. That was purchased for $255,000. I was able to get a land grant to get 153 back. That went back into the CPC Open Space Fund. The conservation restriction for Wheeler Brook is a new proposal that's before the CPC right now. So they're not connected.
Oh.
Although one of my angles on the new project is that we brought all this money in and we could use it towards this conservation restriction.
Now, are we planning any use of that land at all? Or-
Which
Well, either one.
Willowbrook,
Yeah.
the proposal that, the original project I was trying to bring to the town was an outright purchase of the farm to be run as a town-run farm. The landowner was not interested in that part, so the best I could do was a conservation restriction. It's labeled a conservation restriction. It's a hybrid between an agricultural restriction and a conservation restriction, but we can't enter into an agricultural restriction. So we wrote a conservation restriction that looks identical to an ag restriction. So,
Okay.
I think the shorter answer is it would stay as a farm and it couldn't be developed. That's the idea.
it's purchasing the building rights,
Right.
the short
Yeah.
answer.
And the rest of these are, as it shows, fee-based to pay for enforcement of wetlands.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's basically what all of your revolving
Yeah,
funds
and
are for.
Camp Dennison is to run Camp Dennison, whatever work needs to be done on the buildings and grounds and things like that.
Right, didn't we vote a number up in the
We,
revolving fund?
we voted to increase
Yeah.
it, right, yeah. And the money that goes in comes in from rents of the buildings and grounds in Camp Dennison.
Is there any staffing still coming out of revolving funds? Or any other funds?
Not for the last year, this year.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah,
That-
I thought we
that was
got,
kind
I
of-
thought we got that out,
Yeah.
but I wanted to make sure we got it out. Okay.
years ago, when we were having really tough budget times, we moved some of the salaries in conservation to get paid out of revolving fund. It was just done as a temporary basis until we kind of.
It was very long.
It was just
temporary.
It was long for temporary, but at least it's back on because it shouldn't be.
Okay.
Revolving funds shouldn't be paying for a full-time employee.
It wasn't sustainable.
Right.
So-
That's right, it was running out of money, it seemed to me, yeah.
It would have.
It would have.
Over.
Right, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
a period of 5 years, I think it was the estimate.
Okay.
When you did that change, they were much busier too, and the fees, I mean, were
Right.
coming in at a rapid pace.
Right,
Now,
right.
the fees have really dried up.
Well, I like to think equally busy. Our permits are at the same level, but the individual permits are less. So decks and pools and additions versus new construction. So we have the same number of applications. It's just they're a lot of septic systems for people replacing septic systems. $100 fee for that doesn't add up. Where new construction you get just a couple $1,000 for the fees. The types of permits are kind of changing.
Okay, well, here, is there anything that we have the opportunity on TV for any recreation areas or whatever that, for people to take note of in the spring? I mean, we've got Camp Dennison,
Camp Dennison.
Brett.
The new driftway at the end of Wells on the right is we're going to be building a little parking area down there. We're looking to do some improvements to the community gardens. Have that conservation restriction proposal through the CPC. What else? We're updating our open space plan. So we hired a consultant, and this time we're trying to work a little bit better to have more of an active rec component. So it's actually the open space and recreational plan, where in the past we've just done open space and focused on that. So this cycle,
That's good.
we're
That's
paying
a
more
good thing.
attention
Yeah.
because active rec is getting a lot of attention these days. And we really don't have, I know GA has a lot of numbers on usage and what we need and what we
Right.
have. Or this all should be kind of tallied up by a consultant that's kind of an expert in the field. So it'd be really good to get this open space plan because, it's like the planning board's management plan. It's a tool that the town can use to make decisions going forward. So CPC can use this to kind of look at and justify some of their votes and stuff like that. So the open space and recreational plan will be great. We should have that within 2 or 3 months. So that will be great.
Great. Anything else?
That's all I have. Any questions?
No?
Gary, have any questions? Nope. All right, great. Thank you, Steve, for
Thank
coming
you.
in. We appreciate it.
Thank you much. Thanks for the coffee.
You're welcome. Colleen? Council on Aging.
Good morning.
Good morning. One of our favorite departments.
Thank you. Well, I'm Colleen Rancha Fiorillo. I'm the Georgetown Council on Aging Director. I've copies of our annual report as well as our newsletters. For
Great.
those of you who might not receive them at home, some of you do.
Very nicely.
An advance copy.
Wow, you're special.
Well, and Mike always has a copy. But,
Is that an indication, Mike?
Oh, Mike has a copy?
comment.
Okay.
But our budget is very similar as to last year's. Mike asked us to, to prepare a level service budget. So I did. The salary line, of course, includes the 2.5% increase that's been planned for non-union employees. The breakdown of the expense lines following the new format that we were asked to use. And so our expense line is slightly increased, but, as I tried to look at what I had spent last year, I looked at what I'd spent so far this year, I looked at the consumer price increase, tried to get a realistic, thinking, bulk mail had increased. There could be,
Yep.
for us, for Congregational Church, our rent had increased, cost of gas has increased. And so there are no new activities or programs included in the expense line. It simply reflects the cost of doing business, the same business this year as last year. Breaking down things, I tried to, following the new format, the repairs and maintenance, when I looked at the information Mike gave us, that's where I put the annual software fee for my senior center, which, as a statistics program, one of my board members has just arrived.
Come up and join us.
Cynthia Tardif.
Hi.
Nice of you to come and join us.
We have coffee if you'd like some.
So that's the annual maintenance fee for the software, and the software allows us to gather the statistics that I need to be able to report both locally and to the state. The next line, rent and lease, of course, is the rent that we pay quarterly to First Congregational Church for our meal site and activities center that's located at the church 3 mornings a week.
So the 1616 is quarterly?
I'm not sure how you're looking at it broken down. I'm looking at, it's $5,593 for the year, and we do pay that in a quarterly amount.
No, I guess I'm looking at personnel service, I'm sorry.
Right, I think
50
you,
hours.
Yeah.
right, you also use, because this is your out of the operating expense coming out of the tax side, but then you also have expenses you do out of some revolving funds too.
No, I don't have a revolving account.
don't?
I have a formula grant.
A formula grant, okay, my apologies,
So,
okay.
under professional and technical, I included the cost of the MCU8 and the Mass Council on Aging conference that I attend each year, either held down on the Cape or in Sturbridge. Under communication, I included the cost of bulk mail, our office, and cell phone. The cell phone is used by our van driver when he's in the van, so that he has a way to call first any assistance that he might
Is
need.
that his phone or?
No, but see, under communication, I include the office and the cell phone. We do have Nextel, Sprint Nextel, phone that we rent, $24 a month. And that way he has a way to call from the van for anything that he might need. And recreation includes the cost of our program, our instructors who teach strength training and yoga classes, and some program costs. Other purchase services includes the dues that we pay to Mass Council on Aging, our Northern Essex Elder Transport, any MCUA meetings that I have to attend, which aren't many, elder services, our assessment there. Under office supplies, it is just that, it's office supplies. And then under vehicular supplies, I include gas and maintenance for the van. Travel and mileage, there is some travel for me as I take the newsletters back and forth to the Haverhill Post Office because they have to go there, meetings or the cost of attending, traveling to the conference.
That's crazy.
You have to go to Haverhill?
It's
I
bulk
do.
mailing. You have to go to
Yeah.
Haverhill.
I have to go to Haverhill during certain days, certain times.
Yeah.
You should see me going with my new little newsletter. It's it's always an adventure. I never know what I'm going to find once I get there. So that that is it. That's those were the increases that I just looked at the potential for and tried to budget for, so that would correctly reflect
Do you have
what
a
cost is.
Do you have an estimate of how many people have attended?
I do.
She doesn't have an estimate, she knows it.
That's the annual report.
It's in the annual report. Okay.
I mean, we serve 1,694 elders in the age of 60 in town.
Where can I?
First page.
Well, there's a lot here.
There's a lot there.
That,
We are
Saturday
very
morning.
busy, and we're doing a lot of work.
In your goals,
6.
we have the senior center facility, okay, which is something we know that we need. And I think one of the goals is to actually use Pearly when the
Yes.
school goes in.
It's been talked
Well,
about
it's been
at the board, select board level, yes.
yeah.
Can we start, and obviously would we be able to increase services if we were able to go to Pearly, use that for a senior center?
If we were able to locate all of our programs and services in one place, because right now we use multiple
Right.
locations, it certainly would allow for some efficiencies. And it would allow, I mean, I literally do run from one spot to the other in order to facilitate programs. And so, and in terms of then being able to plan, I mean, I'm trying to, I'll plan an activity at the church at the same time that I have a program happening at Trestle Way as well. Because, in order to be able to have things happen simultaneously, we've got to have the space to do that.
Right.
So that if you had some more space, available in one location such as Pearly, you could have programs happening simultaneously, as well as you could still have some other things happening. There might be, a library or a craft room, or people could be doing more things at the same time in one space. The only, the challenge there too would be we'd need to increase our staff somewhat. We have a very, very part-time staff.
Right.
And to do more, I would need some more support to be able to accomplish some more as well.
Mike, is this something over the next couple of years we need to start thinking about and planning out for what would be best for the Council on Aging moving forward? Or when do you see that as?
Well, the board's position is, this isn't gonna happen until the Pearly School until Pembroke School is up and running. And that won't be until the fall of 2015.
Gives us some time to plan.
So, it would be ideal to start planning now.
That's-
You're absolutely correct.
Yep.
And, there would have to, I don't know what would have to be done to the facilities itself.
I know.
Hopefully not much. But as far as programmatically, that's gonna take, and as Colleen said, I mean, you wanna expand services, you gotta expand the staff. They're very limited right now.
But we're doing a lot.
Right, no,
Yeah,
you do
it's-
do
yeah,
a lot, and I think this is also,
But you're
Into-
right, I mean, I am cognizant that, I have an administrative assistant at, 10 hours a week. My outreach worker is 16 hours a week. That doesn't even provide then another full-time person in the office with me.
right.
Even as I put them together. It's
No,
still
I mean,
full-time.
it's a fact, and it's a
Exactly.
matter of,
Yep.
it's,
Logistically, it's just sometimes hard.
I think we have the
Fortunately, I've
numbers.
had wonderful volunteers who have stepped in and, help at every opportunity that they can. And, they help me lead programs and they help me manage and facilitate. And I certainly couldn't do the work that I do without the support of both my staff and volunteers.
That's why
And,
one of
you know,
our favorite
and,
departments.
to answer Robin's question, our numbers continue to increase because we are there. People are feeling comfortable coming to us for support.
Right. Okay, well, I guess that's something we really need to start
It'd
thinking
be
about.
very exciting to plan, so.
It would, I think it's, it'd be really exciting, because I know, since I've been on the board, we've been talking about getting a senior center. And I think that's something
And
for
we-
those who are getting your newsletter now, and for those of us who will be getting your newsletter in the future.
Well, that's just it. Our
Why are you
numbers
looking at me?
continues to.
What's wrong with getting the news?
What's your projection in terms of number of people 16 over increasing? I noticed it's been over,
Yeah,
what, 80%?
yeah. Well, because again, we have to use the federal census, which is done between, every 10 years. So between 2000 and 2010, we saw people who were, becoming 60, that was the baby boomer age, and so we saw a big increase at that time. And that was an opportunity, that was a time that Georgetown saw a lot of growth take place.
You're finding that the elders are staying in Georgetown?
Yes, people hope to age in place. People hope to, and that's our goal.
Okay.
Just not this place.
We can't move.
It brings a challenge as well for many.
Well, anybody have any other questions? Do you have any upcoming events or anything you'd like to announce on TV?
We always have
I know you always have
upcoming
events.
events.
Any
Yeah.
events,
Upcoming.
fundraising, or anything else? The opportunity
That
to.
wouldn't be our work. The Friends of the Council on Aging have been active, and they had participated in the Alliance evening at the Noonan's greenhouse a couple of weeks ago, which was just lovely. It was really nice to be able to get in out of the cold and be in the greenhouse with the plants. But we've had an Alzheimer's caregiver support program underway, which has been fabulous and has sort of opened the way, I think, for some more partnerships with the Alzheimer's Association. We'll have our St. Patrick's Day party this week. We'll have a music program coming in May that we're looking forward to. We'll have an elder attorney will be in April. We'll be doing another program with the Triad Group and the Sheriff's Department, the Essex County Sheriff's Department at Trussaway in April on remaining positive. And so, yeah, we have a lot. But our newsletter is always online. I keep it updated online, and I've always got it in the office available or outside the office. So, if you have any questions as you go forward, certainly let me know.
Is there any place that anybody who wants to volunteer or donate any services or anything that they can look to see what you'd be looking
they
for?
can certainly talk with us.
Give you a call. So you don't have something listed
No,
formally?
I do have
Okay.
some things listed, but it's good to be able to talk with people.
Okay.
And,
So if anybody has any time or
yeah.
services, because
Certainly.
because you said elder law and things like that, or do you have some people with accounting for taxes this year again?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we have our income tax preparation program is underway, and we are busier this year than we have ever been. We had filled all of his appointments before he even began. And then we went back and we added appointments, and we filled all the appointments that we added. So that will be underway through April 11th. And fortunately, he also volunteers some time and does some appointments on Monday mornings at Trussaway, and all of our overflow has gone there as well. So, yeah,
Wow.
he does a wonderful job. He's a very nice man, and again, it's an opportunity, it's a way to stretch people's budget. They can have their taxes prepared without cost, and at the same time also learn about the circuit breaker tax credit program and have that prepared for them as well. So it's a very, very good thing.
Great. Any other questions? Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very
for
much.
joining us.
Thanks. Thanks for having us this morning. Glad everybody was able to get out safely.
I know. I had visions
get a
of
little
that.
worried.
Really,
I know.
thought,
February.
How ironic that you would have planned, that we'd have a snowstorm for both.
For both of
For
them.
both of them, I
that's
know,
right.
I know. Great, thank you, Pauline. Library? Come on down.
Flying through here.
I know.
I know.
Well, this is.
And if you're not on the mailing list for the Council on Aging newsletter, you can get a copy at the library.
There you go.
Fabulous.
Look at that.
I've even got them archived.
Synergy.
Like that.
Fabulous.
Absolutely.
If you could introduce yourselves?
Ruth Eifert, I'm the library director for 10 years? Yes, 11 years. 11 years.
Really?
Yes. 2002, I'm on my 12th year.
Wow.
Mary Saunders, chair of the trustees.
Welcome.
You've been a trustee as long as I've been a director, right?
Almost tired you,
Almost.
not quite.
We've all been on these boards way too long.
Big.
Well, welcome. We're on tab 14, the library, and
It's a little bigger.
it's a little bit bigger, yes.
Well, if I could just have a word of explanation.
Sure.
Ruth has submitted, multiple budgets,
Okay.
basically.
Possible scenarios.
She does every year.
Um,
She has her level service budget, but she is requesting to increase services this year.
Okay.
So there's an additional line, as you can see, they would like to open on Thursdays, and she shows the cost of what that would be.
What is in the roll-up right now? The level services?
Level services.
Level services, all right, so,
And which is the budget number you have for level services, the total? I've got several on mine. Well, I've got I don't know how you got your spreadsheet. Can I just take a peek over your shoulder?
I think this is the recent one you gave us is
It just looks different than mine.
312717.
Yeah,
Okay.
and hers says
This one doesn't
312.
have the library as broken out, the one you gave us this morning. No.
I think we're gonna get
The
these sheets.
level service proposed
Yeah,
is
it looked a little different.
306,117.
No.
We don't even have that.
Wait, this one is 312,717 that we have.
Level services
I
is
get
308.
965.
Okay, all right, so
I
level
was thinking
service
308,047.
Level service COLA,
is 308.
308.
Oh, level service
047.
COLA.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I'm requesting is 312,717.
Oh, you're right, okay.
Yeah, so
Then
this
there's
is
a
her.
possible open Thursdays. You have that
Said she
fourth
To
line item.
358.
358, exactly.
Okay, so basically, your level service is 308, and if you open Thursday, you've got a $50,000 increase.
Yes.
I don't have that.
And what's the difference between the COLA and the request? It's
The
more
COLA and the
hours?
request, over the past
gave
couple
these
years,
last
we have
week, I handed out.
budgeted salaries for
Probably in that packet.
Page and increased hours in the custodian services. We have budgeted to spend our state aid for that. In the fiscal year 12, we did actually spend about 1,700 out of state aid. In fiscal year 13, we're already up to about 3,200. We're spending in state aid for salaries. That's for page salary and increase in custodial services. So I included that in my request. So the 312,717 would include the 2 pages and 2-hour increase per week for custodian.
To come out of the operating budget as opposed to
State aid.
state
Right.
aid.
But we are prepared, if necessary, we're prepared to go ahead and continue paying that out of state aid. If the request is
What
really to
would you
stick to.
do with it if you got it? What would you do with the state aid if you got the salaries out of there?
Well, we use state aid for a variety of things. Do you have the
Yeah, this is
one that talks about
The
state aid?
breakdown.
The
Right.
breakdown?
State aid
Oh,
use.
I've got
Yeah.
We use state aid for a variety of things. There's bullet points that what the Mass Board of Library Commissioners say that we use it for, to encourage municipalities to improve public library service,
Yeah,
resource sharing, compensate for disparities. That's why we get the state aid.
yeah.
We've used it for creating incentives. We've used it for programming. We've
Buying computers?
Buying computers, yes, definitely buying equipment that would sometimes be outside of a municipal appropriation budget. We've used it to buy little magnets to give away, for creating brochures and flyers. Creating signs around the library that, approving costs we might use state aid for. We have in the past couple of years, we've used it for paying for a few more page hours and also to increase the custodians from 8 hours a week, which is not sufficient, to 10 hours a week, which is barely sufficient. Yeah, that's what we've used state aid for in the past. I did give you a breakdown. We used quite a bit of our state aid in the fiscal year 12. And a good portion of that was some computer purchases and some salary line items. Unfortunately, we had some illness, which meant that we actually had excess salary money, so I didn't have to use as much state aid. I was able to, use regular salary.
Oh, so this was a one-time grant, was it? And you are,
State aid we get on
Every
an
year.
annual basis.
If
When
and
we-
only if we're certified.
If we maintain our state certification, we get state aid. State aid
Oh, I see,
is,
yeah.
is a formula. Right now, we're averaging about 7,000 to 8,000. We were up to 10,000 since I came in 2002. We've had 2 drastic cuts in state aid of over 30%.
Not our fault, that's the legislature
Not our fault,
deciding
it's at
how
the
much.
state level, yeah. So our
Okay.
worst case scenario, if I can put it that way, in the last 11 years, we've been down to about 6,200 that we've gotten as a grant from state aid. It increases each year. And one of the things that increases our state aid is how much we circulate to non-residents.
Oh, I
So the
see.
more we can encourage non-residents to come into Georgetown, the more state aid we get. Not a whole lot,
Yeah.
but every year the state, when I send my statistics in and say our increased circulation to non-residents has increased by 46%, which means it went from 800 circs per year to 1,200 circs per year, which is not a big increase, but it looks, statistic-wise, it's huge. So the state says, how does this happen? Give us some explanation as to why this is occurring. And we say, well, we're friendly. People like coming to the library. West Boxford Library was closed by the Boxford Library a couple years ago, so we have West Boxford residents closer to come to Georgetown and to come here. We're open now. Newbury's had some drastic cuts in their library services, so the days that they're closed, we have a lot of Newbury residents that come here because they're only open Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I think. So
Oh, is
Mondays
that
and
all?
Tuesdays
That-
we'll
that
see.
brand new library
Yeah, they
in
had some
Byfield?
severe cuts at the library level.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons why people come here, but the main thing is they like us, and we're getting almost on a weekly basis or daily basis people coming and saying, "What a beautiful space! What a nice library! You're all so friendly. We give a lot of personal service."
I have a term question.
A term question.
Yeah,
Yes.
what's the difference between a librarian and a technician? You got senior library technician
Technician.
versus that of children's librarian. Why?
The
They're not
librarians
called
traditionally are
technicians.
those who have a master's degree in library science.
Okay.
And if they don't, then they quite often get called technician.
If they don't have it.
If they don't,
Okay.
right. Right now, I'm the only one on the staff that has a master's in library science. Our children's librarian has a master's degree, but not in library science. But she has a
All right,
master's. That's what's used, and we've always been such a small library. They've always, someone who works in a library is a librarian.
Yeah, right.
But they're technicians. They do everything that I do, almost,
Can I ask
except
a couple of
administration.
questions? So on
Yeah.
this page with the circulation numbers.
Yes.
Items borrowed from other libraries.
Yep.
So in '09, 8,000 odd, and then jumped to 2012, the numbers up to 11,000. So what does that mean, items borrowed from
Items
other
borrowed from other libraries, those are items that our patrons have requested either online or through us, and they've been delivered to the Georgetown Library, and then people come to the library and pick them up. So it's a book that belongs to Bill Ricca, or a book that belongs, or a movie that belongs to Tingsboro. We put in a request, and it goes through our delivery system and arrives in Georgetown for our patrons to borrow.
Interlibrary alone, I use it a lot.
And so by the same token, the one below that, where the number is even higher.
Even higher, those are
that's
things
us-
we're sending
we're
to
sending
other
out to
libraries.
The nice thing about that is that with the is it collaboration? What is it?
Consortium.
Consortium, is that each library doesn't have to have all of the, everything.
We don't have to carry everything
Yeah,
that's
which is really-
out there. We belong to a 35-member consortium, so we have 3
always find it
million
somewhere.
items
Yeah.
available. And yeah, this number increasing, both numbers, things both coming into Georgetown for our patrons and numbers going out to other libraries for other Massachusetts residents is increasing. That's what we're doing a lot of that.
And that's a lot of labor
And then-
for the
A
librarians.
lot of labor. And the Georgetown residents went elsewhere. That next line item, you can see that number slowly going down. This is purely an indication of how well the library is being used as opposed to 5 years ago. As we said, when we built the new library, that you build it and they'll come is true. But these are numbers of people that used to go to other libraries and are now coming back to Georgetown. So the number where they're traveling to other facilities,
How do you get
going
that
down.
number?
it gets
Text
delivered
card
to
number.
me through the system.
Okay.
I don't have to count those myself, it's all.
I was gonna say, how do
I get
you-
statistics every day, circulation statistics every day from the
Yeah, I guess
system.
she's not increasing it, she's just increasing time, not.
Yes.
I have a
Just-
question in
Yeah.
terms of your utilities and heat, what have you.
Yes.
If you're showing them as being flat, even though you're open an additional 364 hours a year.
Is that because we keep the heat set at
Right.
constant?
We
rather
keep
than-
the building heated and cooled,
Okay.
every day at the same level.
But shouldn't there be an increase for lights or things like that?
If we're actually gonna be open another 8 hours, we probably will see an increase in lights. But the computers are running,
Okay.
so
So it's not gonna be a big.
it's not gonna be I don't think it's
So
gonna
it's
be
marginal increase
Yeah.
at best.
Yeah, because, the new building, you don't wanna set the thermostats to shut down.
Right.
We keep it moderate, then during the off times, it's set to, go down to lower temperatures.
Okay.
But during the better part of the day, it keeps its temperature and heating and cooling year round.
You had an energy consultant in about the settings of the heat and so forth.
Yeah, when we had the energy people came, they went and looked at all the thermostats and
Yeah, the
recommended that
part of the-
levels be left.
Because the building was so new, there wasn't much for, as far as the ESCO.
Right.
Energy services. They
We are
were-
seeing some nice
But-
decreases because
But
of
they,
that.
but they did what they call recommission the building, and they looked at all the controls. They already had modern controls, but they reset everything and fine-tuned it. And they, they should see a 10% savings,
Yeah, we're seeing a good savings.
at least.
So far.
Conservatively.
So that, I felt pretty confident in leaving that the same way.
Plus,
But yeah,
we started purchasing with the school on the gas. We don't buy our gas from National Grid anymore. They still deliver it, but we buy it on the open market, and we were able to save at least 5%.
That stuff just amazes me.
It's, yeah.
5% on the gas itself. So there's because we didn't pick up their utilities as part of the ESCO. You'll see with the other departments, we
took it
pulled
all
in
out.
all the electric
Right,
and
yeah.
gas
Yeah.
into this budget. It's not
Right.
in the administration budget. It's not in the department budgets. This is the only department that has it because we didn't do any of the energy conservation measures, but they still benefited.
I have a question, Ruth, on the educational book material supplies to open up on Thursday.
Yes.
Is that just a direct correlation to more hours for the operating
Yes,
budget as usual?
our-
Why don't you
our-
explain that just for those?
right. The state
who may not
requires,
have-
as part of our state certification, we're required to spend 19% of our operating expenses on materials. So if you increase your salaries or increase your utilities,
increase
you
that.
have to increase your book budget. So that's exactly 19% of an operating budget. Even if I use money from other sources for materials, if I use my state aid to purchase
Still has to
materials,
be.
that still has to be factored into that 19%. It becomes part of my operating expenses, so I still have to maintain that. So you want to be careful where you're spending the money from. So yes, I can ask for gifts and donations and we use them, but they become part of your operating expenses, which factors into the formula. So if I get a cost of living, say, halfway through the year at fall town meeting, I still have to find that matching 19% increase in my book budget to cover the salaries. Salaries increase. Yeah.
Which you can use
Which
state aid
yeah, we
for,
can
too.
use state aid for, and that's usually what we end up doing if we need to supplement that.
Okay, so back to opening up the one day.
Yeah.
Because the note you made is below 10,000. How close are we to going over 10,000 in our population right now, Mike?
We're at
We just hit 80.
87.
We just hit 8.
Well,
85, isn't it?
no, we're at 81.
Oh,
We're at 81.
As far as the
Wow.
federal census is concerned, 81.
It's that close.
Do we have any sense of when we're going to hit 10,000? Zero? Nothing, okay.
I mean, 20 years ago, they said we would max out at 10.
11.
Yeah. I don't,
It was 11.
I don't see it happening.
Build-out was 11, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you
They've
know,
since bought some land.
it's
so I
still
don't
a good
think it's
idea to
that
plan for it, and I think even if we were able to do it, we would have a lot of parents really, really happy with us.
To have Thursday
Because we
open,
provide,
safety.
you know, a lot of after-school services. Not programming, but we're there for the students after school, and that's the one day, you know, Thursday that we're not there, that,
Do you find that there's a lot of children that come unaccompanied to the library
yes.
after school?
oh, yes.
So close to the high school, middle high school.
Yeah, 222. Come to the library at 222. And
Avoid
come
it
to
at
see
all costs.
all the butts in chairs or just wandering around.
Yeah.
And invariably, I walk around and say, you need to find some place to sit, you need to find something to look at, something to read. You know, it might be nasty outside, but I'll send you out if I have to.
Is it beneficial? Is there a minimum amount of hours that makes sense to open on Thursday, or is that at the 7 hours? I mean, does it make sense to open like 2 to 6 or anything like that?
Our goal is, if we could do the 7 hours at 10 to 5, which is the same as our Friday hours, that we could also increase programs to children. Story times are usually in the morning when kids are in school and the little ones are at home.
Yeah, they feel
So we would try to increase children's programming in the mornings and then have the after-school hours until 5 o'clock. I would love to see Thursday nights, because our meeting room is used so much and the use of the meeting room is increasing.
That's what I was wondering, something
We can't do
like,
Thursday night. I mean, I'd love to do 10 to 8 would be my ideal. Cost-wise, that's a big amount of money to look at.
Yeah, but what if you,
Children's programming doesn't usually happen in the afternoon.
right.
Right,
I'm
it's nap
thinking
time.
rather than,
Nap time.
and both of my kids took advantage of the children's, trust me.
Yeah.
But I think what Sandy's trying to get at is rather than like 10 to 5, what if you,
Like 12
you
to
know,
8,
did
12
like,
to 8.
yeah, I'm just
could you
trying to see
shift
other.
the hours?
Well, yeah,
I wouldn't proceed to say what you need to open. I'm just wondering,
No.
is there,
Right.
you know, what, are there any other opportunities? I mean, besides 10 to 5, are there opportunities, even if you can't do the full 7 hours, is it worth opening for 4 hours? Is it worth opening for 3?
Or even the efficiencies by doing 1 to 8 instead of 10 to 5. Because if you're opening 10 to 5 and you're opening, you know, and again, it's a limited or smaller purpose for the morning reading where you have the whole library running. Whereas if you have the library running in the later afternoons, you're seeing the benefit because it's been used by the kids after school.
sure.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
and all of that, and then maybe your meeting rooms.
Well,
at
because our
night.
current Monday, Wednesday is 2 to 8, you know, so if you did 2 to 8 again on Thursday, that's 6 hours. And that would be consistent, a consistent schedule, you know, for people's memory. Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 2 to 8, so that you'd be open in the evenings for the meeting room use. You wouldn't necessarily have an opportunity for story hour programs or children's programs. It could go either way. Eventually, you'd have to find that one more hour to be open 40 hours, you know, eventually. But,
Eventually,
I
yeah.
mean, I'd love to see 12 to 8 on those days that we're only open, that we don't open till 2. 12 to 8 would be great. A few
Eventually.
more hours here and there. Yeah.
Okay, so just for purposes, because we
Just-
go through deliberation, if we can basically, can we just take that difference in cost, and if we divide it by 7, come up with what an hourly rate on average is, probably?
There is the salary page that
Okay.
shows where those numbers came from.
Okay.
Because I'm showing increasing just for example, my salary right now is based on 35 hours a week. I would change it to 40 hours because I'd be there 5 days a week.
Right.
The children's librarian is at 20 hours. I would increase her at 30 hours. I would increase her to 35.
But you could, if we were to increase your budget, if the opportunity presented itself, you could find some benefit from opening another day?
Oh, yes,
Even if it's
absolutely.
not a full day? Okay.
And what it would mean is, after talking to my staff about the ideas for opening, another 7 hours or even 6 hours on Thursdays, it wouldn't necessarily mean the actual children's librarian would be increasing. We might actually hire part-time staff to fill in those hours. You know, someone who's already working 35 might not want to go, or already working 30 might not want to increase to 35. So it would probably, it might mean more bodies in the building, which is helpful to us because they're a little more flexible in schedule. Or it might mean-
Helpful when you have a small but very highly trained staff.
Yes.
If somebody gets ill and cannot be there, then the others have to fill in that you have
Right.
enough people to call on. There was a time this past year when she had somebody on vacation and a couple people sick, and it was
Yeah.
down to
2 bodies, and, which is not
Almost
good.
not unsafe.
We really need 3 to adequately run the library, but we really need 4 on a regular basis.
All right. Gary, you have a question?
I have a question. I believe in order to receive some of the aid we have for the building, we must increase the budget by 2.5% a year, is that correct?
It's an average of 2.5% over the past 3 years.
Okay, so
We
that
need
was,
to average 2.5%.
so if you did get an increase and then later it had to go down, how would that
that would hurt.
affect that? I guess that's the question.
If we got
Where do we-
right, if we got an increase, we'd have to factor in over the next 3 years that we were still averaging that 2.5%.
That's what I'm saying, is if we increase, that's quite a bit, if we increased your estimate for around 50,000, and then maybe a couple of years we had to cut you back, how is that gonna affect the state aid, I guess, if we're going down?
Anytime
We
you
have
cut
to
back,
cut
it
on
affects
this.
Yeah, making drastic cuts makes it more difficult to qualify for state certification, you know. I think Jim and I talked about this a few years before the library opened, you know, what about increasing smaller amounts, you know, open Thursdays from 1 to 5 for a couple of years, so that you could factor in that 2.5% without it really breaking the bank, and then, you know, in a couple of years, then you add the evening hours, you know, something like that would work, because that we're working towards the 40 hours a week we would need to be open once we reach that population level. You know, and the first thing I would go, if that were the case, I would go for the afternoon hours, Thursday afternoon. Difficult for staffing, but not impossible. But at least it would fulfill the after-school issue.
Okay.
Yeah, to keep things on an even keel. Because yes, we do have that mandate, an average of 2.5% over the past 3 fiscal years. And I have those spreadsheets too.
She has all
Any other
the numbers
questions
for
or
everything.
comments for the library?
Well, this is the first year you've asked for our funds, our various funds, I don't know if you had.
Yeah, that was nice to say.
Well, I was told to submit them, so.
No, it's nice.
I did it. Why are you so surprised?
No, it's nice, to be able to sit there and
And look at.
look at it and actually, with you did the bullet points, to understand where these funds,
Yeah.
how these funds are being used.
I wish that we got better interest.
Yeah, that we all.
I
The
know.
$5,000 fund, which was wonderful, it gets $1.50 a month at best. We used, you know, on our.
In 1 year, you can buy a
Peabody fund,
book.
we used to get in the $500 a month range, and now we're getting 50.
So you only use the interest from the Peabody Fund, you don't use any principal, try not to anyway.
That's the Sawyer Fund.
The Sawyer Fund has a principal balance. The Peabody Fund is just what it is. It's not a principal interest kind of thing. It does collect interest, but it's not a, doesn't have a,
You can use it for whatever.
You know, it doesn't have a requirement, so.
Oh, okay.
right,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
But there's quite a bit of money there, though.
Yeah,
yes,
In the
and
peak,
we-
right. The
we-
Sawyer
we
Fund
may
is the
need
page
roof
before.
replacement,
we may be looking at roof work.
roof work
Oh, is that what you
Couple of
use it
years.
for?
on
if
the
you
old
need to?
building,
Oh,
which
okay.
wasn't done in the building project.
Okay.
Yeah, the Sawyer Fund was created for books for children 10 years old, so we, you know.
Yeah,
Oh, is
12
that
years old.
right?
yeah, I read that. That was an
Interest
interesting.
only. Oh, okay.
A memorial gift account that people have given money for books in memory of or materials in memory of. And several, when you go back and look at the town annual reports, so the Peabody Library trustees reports, so they owned railroad stock in Ohio, they owned all kinds of, the cities and towns in the
They did the
Midwest, they
investing.
supported, they did all their own investing, and eventually when they sold those stocks, they put them either into the Peabody Fund or into the memorial gift account. As far as we can tell.
Yeah, yes.
But I think as soon as I came director, then all these funds were handed over to the town to
Oh.
control
yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot better that way.
Safer.
It's safer.
Yes, indeed.
Do you have, here's your opportunity to pitch any fundraising,
Well, you're
upcoming events?
missing the fundraiser as we speak. Stephen Pulio is at the library. He's author of The Caning and Dark Tide, The Molasses Flood. He's a
And we
fundraiser
have-
for the Friends. And we have coming up Saturday, April 27th, our wine tasting. I think it's going to be the 7th annual wine tasting at the library. Saturday night.
Those who are very serious about wine take it very seriously. They're writing their notes. The rest of us are around talking and having a great time. The music's good, and desserts are fine. So
Yes,
if you're not
and
all that fond of wine, there's still a pleasant
promoting
evening.
We're
And
promoting the evening as a night on the town. If the Erie Four is having their roast beef dinner that night.
that's right.
So
Oh,
if you
go from one to the
if you
next.
go to Erie
Yes,
Four
there you go.
and come to the wine tasting, we'll give you $5 off your wine tasting ticket.
Oh,
So you can attend both evenings for about $30 a person.
And then you
Okay.
have, you don't have hors d'oeuvres, but you have desserts?
Cheese and crackers,
Okay.
and then that increases every year. We get a little bit more of something else. Sometimes we have chocolates, and we usually have dessert. We always have dessert, and coffee.
and yes, cheese and crackers in abundance.
Yes. Yes. Great. Any other questions for me?
Nope, just want to make sure you got your plug in for what you got coming up.
Yeah, I know.
And the Friends of the Library are becoming much more active.
Yes.
We have a few younger members with more
Energy?
energy. And we're going to do
Seems to be
a
a theme of this
membership
morning.
drive. Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
And when, now, because I've taken advantage of it, the book room for sale,
Yes, we have an
The book sale.
ongoing book sale.
which is great.
Haven't gotten back there yet.
Paperbacks and hardcovers, 50
Yeah.
cents and
There it
$1.
is.
It's
Right.
ongoing. We got some free shelving from a local physician who was cleaning up their offices. I got this phone call, can you use some shelving?
Yep.
I said, what size is it? So we had a couple of trustees and a few spouses of staff moving bookshelves from across town into
Nice.
And where do the books come from?
They're all donated, and we take donations year-round.
That's good to know.
It's a
Yeah.
tradition. If you're cleaning out your books, bring them to the library, see if they can use them. Sometimes the library actually pulls from the
Yep.
donations and puts it on the shelf, but others
Yeah.
go in the same.
That's
And-
good to know.
So it's all the time.
All the time, whenever the the 33 hours a week we're open.
Yeah, when you're open.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless
Yeah, I
you
went
know
down
the
to
re-
return a book and came home with
Yeah,
8
I know,
books.
I do.
On the
Probably
flip
wasn't
side,
too
you know, our
impressed.
meeting room is getting used a lot, and not just by town organizations. Of course, we're using it for library programming, which is number one, library programming. But the fire department's been using it a lot for their training of their new EMTs and their ambulance services. They've been using the room a lot, especially when we're closed. So they have the magic key and come and do. The police department's starting to use the room for some training. I guess the chief is having, the fire chief is having a recap about the accident that happened on 95. They're gonna be using the room, I think, next week to discuss the procedures,
what they
everything
did
they
then,
went
yeah,
through, what
yeah.
they did.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, so the room's getting used, the library's getting used. People are coming in. We're still averaging, what's my people count on here? Did I put that? Oh, I didn't include that statistic.
Ruth, you always put that.
Last year, we had 40,000 people come through the doors, and we know that our people counter is severely undercounts. If I
If
have
you get a
a
bunch
mother
coming
with a
through, it
couple
doesn't count them all.
toddlers, it only counts as one. And I have a pod of students that come through.
They count as one.
It counts as
Pod.
one. And they
That's how they
usually
travel.
do. They usually do come in small groups. So, yeah, we're busy. Ever
Super.
increasing.
And then the state in its wisdom says that if your town's a particular size, that you ought to be open 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
And we're on the edge of that,
Yeah.
so,
Getting there.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
The
it's
state
definitely.
requires us to be open 25 hours a week right now.
We're over
And we're
that.
open 33.
Right.
So
You can see that it's well used.
it is
It is
well
increased.
used. Yeah, it's good
It's a-
service.
It's a great resource in
Yeah.
town.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Anybody else?
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we've been here. Anybody need to take a break or anything? Take a 5-minute break or just keep rolling?
Yeah, just
Keep rolling. Glenning, come on up.
Yeah.
Well, I heard when you invited library up, you said, "Come on down."
Oh.
So, in the vein of thought of let's make a deal, let's see if we get close to our bid.
Thank
Okay.
for having planning. See if the numbers are
Where
good.
are we? What number is this guy? Land use planning, 12.
Welcome. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Howard Snyder, town planner.
Great. Welcome, Howard.
Thank you for having us.
Alrighty. Tell us
Sandy.
about what you're
12.
from tab 12.
Yeah.
So we'll consider personal service and purchase of services. Our personal services, salary and wages, just reflect the 2.5% increase over last year.
What's temporary? What's the temporary position?
The temporary position has been, I understand, carried each year, and that is to fill in for if the administrative assistant is unable to make a Wednesday night meeting with the planning board,
Okay.
that we have salary to pay somebody to come in and take the minutes.
Oh, okay.
That's part of the change in the chart of accounts. It used to be carried in as an expense line in the operating expense. It's
Okay.
more properly noted. Anybody that receives a 1099 or a W-2 needs to be in the personnel line.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's how we make that differentiation. But Howard's correct, they've always carried that in the budget.
Haven't used it, but it may be needed. Purchase of services, the delta is less than it was last year.
Yeah.
The reason for that, there was one-time charges that the planning office made, and those were to pay for what's referred to as the pictometry, which is the flyover that happened for Georgetown. That happens every 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
And the other is the purchase of ArcView, a geographic information services software.
We have ArcView now?
We do have ArcView, and the way that was a $2,000, just over a $2,000 charge. It was, I believe, at about $1,300 for the software. $700 is the annual maintenance fee, and what the purchase agreement that was made with the company called Esri, ESRI, is a $700 maintenance fee would be carried each year to maintain that software license. The license was purchased where it's server based, and what can happen, so all the land use departments as well as other departments that might be interested in using it, it can be loaded onto their machine, but what happens is when it's turned on, it goes back to the server to see if any other department has it open, and you're only allowed to have it's called a concurrent license. Only one at a time is allowed to have it open.
Is that working or not?
Well, that gets into a larger question. When we found that IT was not going to be able to load it onto the server, and Mike and I have spoken in brief about the ability for it to be loaded onto the server, is going to require another drive to be put on and dedicated just for the software.
Is that going to be beneficial? Or are we better off just getting another license or two?
No, it has nothing to
So,
do
yeah,
with the
no, that
license.
doesn't sound
There's
like
no
anything to do
room
with
on the
that.
server. There's not enough room
Okay.
on the server.
Okay.
And we're addressing that. We've come up with a solution that I'll be discussing during the administration budget.
So I encourage that to be approved for the expense of adding on another server so that the software can get up and running.
Who uses the software besides planning?
All the land use departments.
Okay.
Zoning,
Okay.
planning, building department would in some capacity, but it then can carry over into
The assessors
the
use it?
assessor's office.
Water, I know. Yeah,
Water
are the
department.
utilities all on there?
I saw his hand go up.
We're using the old version.
The old
We're
version is no
obviously
longer
wrong.
supported by Esri, so been a big jump between the versions that other departments are using, unable to get updates done to their software in the new version.
Okay, are you utilizing MyMap at all through Merrimack Valley, or?
We utilize MyMap and we utilize the pictometry. However, the benefit of using the ArcView is the ability for us to manipulate but not
Oh, yeah.
change the data that Merrimack Valley.
Right, there's a couple of things, it's just, ArcView is all the detail of all the different GIS layers, that are there. I refer to GIS as, remember the overheads with the projectors with the clear
Yeah.
slides?
Yeah.
Picture that, which is like all these clear slides with different layers on top of it. You know, you've got,
Correct.
property, you've got, you can turn something on to say, to include fences, buildings, all that.
Oh,
You can-
That's where the water lines. And,
That's where the
and
water lines are,
and
hydrants.
Things like that.
Yeah, these, for people, you picture just the clear slides one after
Yeah, that's
another.
actually a
Right.
That's
It's an
not-
nice
overlay.
image.
It's a layering system.
It's right, it's all the layers.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then my map is actually, it's a tool or an application for viewing the
Correct.
layers,
Right.
correct? But it doesn't, that doesn't go into the detail of the water and utilities of a lot of stuff the towns need.
Correct.
But
So
it can,
Each
but it
department, it can, but it's limited. So each department, in using the GIS, is exactly that. There's a higher level of manipulating the data without changing it, so you'd be able to do a specific view of what's required for your review of a project or coordination on open space and things like that.
Are any of these, the GIS available online to the public or not?
Not yet. We're coordinating, we'd like to open that up to the public, and I'm
Certain
coordinating
layers.
with
All layers or certain layers?
all the layers without the public being able to modify.
Right.
So they can research their own property to see if there's any wetlands on it.
So it'd be
for
like a
instance.
read-only kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a read-only, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's going through my map?
It would be using my map. Newburyport and Newbury, I believe, allow their residents to have access to it.
Yeah, a lot of communities do
Yeah.
now at this
And
point.
there's an additional cost we're coordinating with MVPC on, and we'll be presenting that for next year.
Okay, so any updates in technology, Mike, will be someplace, the server and stuff in another budget?
Yeah, actually, yes.
It'll be in, okay.
Getting back to Sandy's question, though, how much would it cost to have multiple seat access? to
Well,
something? Is that worth it?
It's not worth it for now. The purchase of each piece of software is about $1,200 to $1,300 plus the $700 maintenance. And so for 3 or 4 other departments, you're talking about a $10,000 to $12,000 purchase. I see it more viable is if every department has a chance to see how they can utilize it in through this concurrent licensing system. And then as they start seeing the benefits, the application of it in their department, then they can pursue purchasing on their own.
And are we moving in that direction, you think?
We should, yes.
Yeah.
That's,
I would consider it in the same vein of what's happened with the GOTMS. That's a similar type of planning office is starting to get up involved and trained on it and so forth, and starting to see and integrate into our office. So as every other department starts using the ArcView.
okay.
So as our purchase of services has diminished, removing the pictometry and the MyMap purchase and so forth, we have added to it. So even though we're less, each of our line item has increased slightly. Office supplies we're increasing, the travel mileage we're increasing, and we're increasing the equipment to hope to update some of the office equipment in the next year. We've increased the tuition, so the administrative assistant as well as the town planner can continue some of their educational training. I personally have gone for the GOTMS training. That is free, and we're going to get the administrative assistant to go in and do training as well, so we can start bringing that into a day-to-day operation with the planning office.
Your consultant engineering legal fees has gone up?
Yeah, it's actually gone down slightly.
down?
That's being held for if we need to pay for mostly engineering fees to help in street acceptances, but we're starting to find some of the street acceptances have a lot of that engineering already accomplished. So we anticipate that being lower in the forthcoming year.
Okay.
You don't have any revolving accounts?
Yeehaw.
Robin doesn't like revolving.
I don't like revolving accounts.
There was
Personal
one
fund.
other item that wasn't in their budget that now appears in their budget, And it also had its own little line item. It was the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission assessment.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was out there by itself.
What,
so
yeah.
Right.
So you just moved it in
folded
here.
it into the planning board. And just a note, it doesn't show anywhere, but a portion of the planner's salary is picked up by the Affordable Housing Trust. That was part of the deal.
Few
if you
years
will.
ago?
Yeah. And so $12,400 of the planner's salary comes directly out of the Affordable Housing Trust. Since the Affordable Housing Trust isn't a budget item, we treat it as a revenue.
Right.
So
yeah.
they make a payment to the town,
Right.
and it goes into the general fund. But that's how we account.
Sort of like the electric department kicks in money for health
Yeah.
and retirement. Yeah.
Is there a, because I remember doing this, but is there a time limit when that ends, or is it indefinite, or is it renewal every year? I can't remember.
I don't
what we
think
ended
there
up.
was a time limit. I think it's just open-ended.
Yeah.
As long as Howard, the planner is the staff person as long as they need a staff person, and as long as the planner's position can handle that extra workload. Right now, it was more efficient and cost savings to use the
Choose
planner.
one person.
Because they were originally gonna hire a separate person, and, we can do it, I think this works out better for everybody.
It's very, 8 hours a week I spend working for the trust as their agent, and so I'm able to coordinate all and all of the programs. It's very beneficial and very cost effective.
I was gonna say, how is it working? Is it working?
I believe it's working very well. The aspect of being an agent for the trust is an outcome of the trustees implementing the housing production plan. And that was one of the first 5-year goals that the HPP outlined. And so I've been able to coordinate with the trust and outside agencies very effectively. And I'm able to inform both the trust and the planning board of each other's activities, because there is some overlap.
I agree with Howard, it's working very well.
Good.
Good. Any other questions?
Nope. We're good.
You don't have any fun dinners or wine tastings coming up, do you? So sad. Thank you very much, Howard.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You too.
Jan, town clerk, come on up.
Ooh, Jan's got a lot of fun stuff coming up.
I vote for Jan.
Okay, where would you like to start, Jan? Oh, introduce yourself, please, Jan.
Kim Crane, Town Clerk.
Welcome.
Salaries, of course, the 2.5%. Yep. Everything else is the same. Election expenses have gone down due to the number of elections that we have.
For
How many are next year?
Next year, in the next fiscal year?
Yeah, 14.
No, that's this year. We have 2 extras that we.
Yeah, no, how many do we have next year?
How many elections next year? Just
Yeah.
the one.
In May. Okay.
Yep. But we got surprises this year.
When
We have
is
special.
the election for?
June 30th.
This year, April 30th is
And-
going to be the special
yeah.
state primary, which we've
Which
combined
is-
with our town election.
Town election.
we backed
When
up the
is
town
When
election.
is the
Yeah.
election for the senator, though? Is it in?
June 25th.
June.
So it's still in this fiscal year.
In this
so-
fiscal year, which we,
So you're right.
of
the
course,
only-
did not budget for, so I will
Right,
be back
exactly.
with
Right.
a
Right.
letter for you,
Right.
a request for you.
Okay.
But
Now,
I'm
is it-
waiting to see after this April 30th before I ask for money, how much I have left.
Is there gonna be a problem, before we go into the 14, is there gonna be an added expense, even though we're moving the town election back to the 30th? Is it still the same cost, combining the 2 elections, or is there an added cost
No,
to
it's-
you?
No, just the June one would be an added cost.
So
Yeah,
the-
we're
the-
hoping to get.
So the
we
state,
have-
the primary is not gonna add anything else
Not really,
to-
because we have to open the extra hour, but
Right.
usually we get additional funding for it's called extended polling hours. So
Okay.
we're still gonna pay for our own ballots, but the state never pays for like your regular hours, feeding all the people, and so it's definitely gonna save us money combining them.
Right,
Yeah.
Very nice that they allowed that to happen.
Alrighty, so 14. Any major changes coming up on 14 in your
No.
department?
Not that I know of. We may come up with, they may come out with a new voting machine, but that's gonna be, we never know.
Is that an unfunded mandate?
Yes, we'll have to pay for those.
Why would they come out with a new voting machine?
Because the life expectancy on voting machines is 10 to 15 years, and we're already 12 years into the ones we have. So they're in the process of testing new machines right now, but nothing's been approved, so we just.
Oh,
go-
that's not by the state. We would have to replace ours. Because
We have to replace ours.
Because we're just
This
getting
is a
old.
recommended machine, is it, that?
It would be the state recommended machine, yes. So we have to go with what they tell us, when they tell us. So it just goes on my CIP from year to year to year, because I never know when.
But how much did it cost? It's not a huge amount of money, is it like $10,000?
Yeah, 10,000 per machine.
Yeah, yeah.
And you gotta have
We have
three.
we have 3 of them now.
Recommendation, huh?
What's that?
It's more than a recommendation.
It's
It's a mandatory thing.
pretty much, it's time to upgrade the machines,
There's
because
3 of
now,
them, I keep forgetting.
Yeah,
so your
that's
state
very
ballots
good.
have to be able to be read by the machines, so when they tell us this is what we're getting.
So, but the state doesn't make every town and city use the same type of machinery, do they?
Some of them are still going with the old ones, but what happens with the old ones is you can't get the parts for them anymore. The servicing was, you really need to upgrade.
But they wouldn't make us upgrade to everybody have their own like booth type of thing.
No, it would be 3 new machines.
Just the 3 new machines. Okay.
Yeah, it would be 3 new machines.
Concerned they're going to sit there and make us have.
Oh.
Those other like other big cities have all those. You know, you pull the
no.
curtain and.
Oh,
Oh,
no,
yeah,
we
you
should
need
be
computer.
upgrading those too.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah, no.
I said we should be upgrading those too, but that's a huge expense to upgrade all those. We don't have to upgrade the voting booth.
Okay.
It's the machine.
Just a machine. Okay.
We have it included in the CIP program.
Yeah, I just move it year to year till they
But
tell me
We're only
it's
carrying
time.
it at 25.
Well, because we'll get trade-in for our
Okay.
old ones, so.
Is that coming up in this year's CIP?
No, next year.
Next year's. Okay.
FY15.
Okay. Any questions anybody has? The I know it's always a challenge. Are we still okay with your hours being open, the town clerk? Because I know everybody wants to be open more, but I mean, are we losing any services or any serious
We're not losing
applications?
services, we just have people that are coming to the window and we're not there. I hear the constant complaint about, I came, you weren't here. I tried to post a meeting, you weren't here.
I know, we're not,
We only work 20
as
hours a
town
week.
hall, we're not always open at the same time. We've
Nope.
got some departments that are
Nope.
closed, some that are open.
Well,
it'd
Kathy
be
and I
nice If we
each-
had some kind of consistency.
We each work 20 hours a week, so if one of us is out, we're closed. The hours that the other person is working, it's at 20 hours a week. If we were both 32, there would always be somebody there, whether somebody was in or out, but vacation time, sick time, we have to close because you can't cover somebody else's hours when you only have 20. So we stagger our hours so we can be open 2 days till 4, but
Internally, it does make it difficult for posting of meetings.
Yeah.
Especially for the volunteer boards that don't have staff.
Right.
They'll come in, 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon,
We're not here.
and no one's here.
And when they're coming in, they're looking to post for when? Like, is there not something that
Usually
they
within
can?
48 hours.
Usually 48 hours,
48
yeah,
hours.
yeah.
48 hours.
And it gets very problematic, and we have, for most part, as long as they get here by 4 and they know enough to come upstairs, Janet Pantano has a key to the bulletin board, and she can post the meeting for them. But, that's a extra work for Jan.
Right, and it doesn't, I
Yeah.
mean, nobody can do a dog license, a birth certificate, a marriage certificate, pulling nomination papers. Somebody came last week. We close at 1:30 on Mondays.
Back to the posting of meetings.
Yeah, that's
We don't have to legally post on the bulletin board. We
Yes,
can
we
post
do.
it online, can't
No.
we?
Nope, we legally have to post ours open to the public outside to see, because not everybody is online. So it has to be somewhere where
I thought that
everybody can get to.
changed. No, I thought that changed.
But we opted in Georgetown to go.
So you're-
That's an
Bullet point.
alternative that is available to us. We can post online.
Okay.
So should we
And we
look
do
into
put them
doing that?
online, but when I'm not here, they don't go online.
But then wouldn't it be a more efficient way for them to somehow, like, submit to you via email their,
They submit by email, then what happens is the meeting room is not open because nobody checks all the meeting rooms that's already booked. We only have 3 meeting rooms in this town, pretty much, except for like the school, but only the school people will post at the school. But it becomes a problem where you can't say to them, you need to rebook this at a different room because it happens a lot. People are booking rooms that are not even available to be booked.
What if we, is, to utilize this opportunity, what if we're at the 48-hour notice, and I can see that that would be challenging if the office is not there, but what if there is some sort of procedure to say, you can book via email if you're booking 5 days in advance, because that'll give the opportunity for you or Kathy to be able to look at the room and have some conversation back and forth via email to make the 48-hour notice.
I don't think you can make people do it 5 days. The law doesn't say you have to
No,
do it
no,
5 days.
no. I'm
If they
I'm
want a
talking
room,
int-
if
I'm
they
talking
want a room.
internally that the volunteer boards and such, if they know that in order, if they want to do, because they can't get here, if they want to book it, book email, that they have to, understand the challenges of your department, and they have to get in touch 5 days in advance to make sure that there's enough time to go back and forth to make sure there's enough.
Try it, but
but another question, volunteer boards, can't they meet at the library?
They can meet wherever
they
they
can
like.
meet as long as they call Ruth and book
Yeah.
that room, but they still have to
It
get it
still
to
has
me
to
for
be
It still has to
posting.
be posted. It
Still has to be posted.
the big challenge is posting the agenda.
Right.
Right.
That's the biggest challenge, because you can't
People-
just book a room
Yeah,
anymore.
well,
It's
people
di-
hold rooms well in advance. I mean, you can hold a room well in advance. It's that agenda.
But that's what I'm saying, is maybe
A lot of them do book well in advance. I mean,
a lot
we
of them
have-
do, right, and that's what I'm saying, is that if
and there's a
if
problem.
the,
We have time to get back to them. It's just the
that's
agenda.
what I'm saying, is
Yep.
because if you're not,
No, we allow them to book. A lot of them are booked right through December.
So do you
Held
think if-
rooms right through December?
so do you think you can accept and take postings via email if people give you more than 48 hours notice?
We do take some that way because people don't get here, but a lot of them forget which room they've booked and what time they've booked it, and a lot of them don't do in advance.
Who puts the meetings on the town calendar?
I do.
You do. It has the room in it, right?
Yes.
So I would think it.
If you look online.
Well, a
you
lot of
look
times what
online, if
happens,
someone looked
if you look
online-
online, by the time they get here and they get it to me, the room's gone. Because, I mean, it's first come, first served. People come to the window, book a room. Whoever comes first gets the room.
Right,
And there's not a lot of issues with double booking in the rooms. There are some.
well, that's what I'm saying.
not a lot.
I'm trying to think, because it is challenging for the volunteer boards because of the limited hours and stuff, to be able to do this. I'm trying to see
You
if
gotta
there's some
constantly
way.
be on your email checking those too. It's like if they do 48 hours and nobody checks email at 2 minutes of 4
That's
before
what
they
I'm
go
saying.
home.
That's what I'm suggesting,
Not
instead of
posted.
48 hours, maybe, like I said, a 5-day in advance. And that has to put some responsibility to the board to say, you know what, that board to say, you know what, I need to book a room.
Yep.
I need to make sure, or I've booked the room, I need to get the agenda.
See, most of them don't have their agenda that far in advance.
Well, then that's there.
Well, that's their issue. though.
that's
They-
the-
they
Right,
can't-
exactly.
Yeah, well, I know.
I'm trying to find a happy
Yep.
medium that works for the boards and works
Yep.
for your department,
If
because.
they do 5 days, fine, but a lot of them, what they do it in 5 days and then we get a change. So it's like taking down the posting.
Well,
putting
you
the
don't, I
posting
mean,
out.
legally, you don't have to. If they give you the agenda and they put on a line on there saying all other business,
Yep.
that covers them
Oh, I know.
for the agenda. They don't have to come up if
I
all of
know,
a sudden.
they do
we've-
though. They come up with changes, like last minute changes.
But they don't have to get that.
I know
to-
that.
Yeah, and I think that's what we
They
need
don't
to.
know that.
Well, I think that's something that we can probably maybe work to communicate to a lot of the boards in town to maybe say, this is you can
It's to the-
achieve this.
The best that you can do at the time you post it, to the best of your knowledge, that agenda.
Right, and
And
that's what
you
I'm s-
can change things, but a lot of them will do another whole change and come back with another change, like last minute.
But that's, I think, needs to be conveyed to the boards, that they don't have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Correct, Mike?
But if they post it online, it doesn't, the up-to-date agenda is online.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, is if for some reason they've given it 5 days in advance, and it gets posted online. If they have a change 2 days or a day before their meeting, it would fall under all other business. They don't have to
Right.
they don't have to re-get it to you to repost. They don't have to. And I think that's a communication that we need to probably get out to the boards. Is that something maybe we can formulate a memo to all the boards and department heads that are involved with boards saying, have this opportunity to, do via email, but they have to take some responsibility to,
And then, but also along that line, when sending that memo, again, to all the boards and the voluntary boards is to, say, please bear in mind, these are the limited hours, the windows are open, plan accordingly.
Yeah.
So that, they can't come then and say, oh, it's closed.
No.
Well, it's on the
The-
memo and you've known it. And
The
that's
open
how
meeting
it's
law
been.
says that they have to post during office hours, not after office hours. And that they just need to know, these are our hours. I mean, they've been like that since
Maybe
they
we
cut
need
our
to-
hours 10, 12 years ago.
That's what I'm saying. So then at least I would think with 5 days in advance that you and Kathy have to be there some point in time within that 5 days to be able to get an email, to get a posting. It's not like you can shut down town clerk's office for a week.
No, which we never do.
Right. That's what I'm
It
saying.
would
It's
just be
it's-
it would be like I said, when one of us is out, we're closed. So it could be like somebody calls in sick, you're supposed to be there till 4, but you can't be because now I'm moving on to another job and I can't stay there till 4 o'clock because I have another job that I have to do too. So people come in and go, I thought you were here till 4. Well, somebody called in sick. There's nobody to cover the office, so.
That's what I'm saying. So if
that's
somebody
the
somebody
difficult
did
part.
that, but then they'd be able to email you, and then
And
presumably
we'd get
somebody
it on
would be in the
Monday.
next day to be able to get the email. So if they came in, that's what I'm saying. You have a meeting on a Wednesday, and they came in the Tuesday a week before, and your office was closed. If they emailed you, presumably you or Kathy are going to get it Wednesday, so you're still going to get it 5
And the
days
thing
in
is, if
advance.
they come into the office, they can leave it. They can leave it underneath the door. We'll pick it up the next morning when we come in.
Okay, well that's something I don't know if a
Yeah.
lot of people know. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just
they do.
this-
They do. I find a lot of things through the window or.
box upstairs.
So if we can
Right.
just kind of, just so all the
Tighten that
boards
up.
know, because it is challenging,
Yeah.
and it's good, I mean.
It is challenging.
Janet Cantano's great to be able to take it when we're doing things last minute, but yet,
But then again, it's she has to go outside and do it and try to get it on the
That's-
website and it's
that's what I'm
extra work
saying,
for
is
her.
that just if we can make all the boards realize a little bit more to, but then being able to get it via email also, if possible.
As long as they send it to both of us, because if one of
That's-
us is
that's
out, the
what's-
other person does not get the email.
That's what I'm saying, is
Right.
to send it to
They
both,
need
to
know
both.
that.
to
Well, they
both.
do. Most of them do know that.
And if we get new boards, I think it's good to have everybody reminded of that. That way, it's the opportunity to do that, so we can make sure people getting the agendas posted like they're supposed to. But also for those who can't get in here because they work 8 to 5 someplace else, they just physically can't get here. So that's one challenge. Any other questions? It's town clerk has got a lot of, I mean, a lot of people don't realize what town clerk does until you actually need it. If you don't have a dog, you're not getting married, you don't die, you're probably not going to town, and you've already registered to vote, you're probably not going to town clerk for anything.
You know, we
You
have the
die, you
same.
don't care.
We
There
have
you
the same
go.
challenge as everybody else. You know, the population's growing. I
Right.
mean, we're up to 8,250 people, and we're still only working 20 hours a
Right.
week.
And I think, because
What's the
Heard
number?
of.
82 what?
It's about 8,250 people, and we're here 20 hours a week. I think we're besides the Board of Health, the only ones that work 20 hours a week.
Right. Yeah, so, Gary, you had a question?
Yeah, my question was, just to what you're talking about, is there a way that you could fill in at least some of the absentee? Because you mentioned some of his absentees and vacations.
No.
I mean, do you see in your budget, if you ask for an increase, a way to at least fill them absentees to keep the office open on a more regular time?
Like ask for more
But
hours?
I
Just-
could ask for
just
more
like
hours,
the
but
library
yeah,
did.
salary
That's what I'm
increase
saying.
was.
For more hours,
If-
but have
if-
money available to pay
With salary
her
increases,
to work
yeah.
more hours if it's.
But you never
necessary.
know when, you never know when it's gonna be. It would have to be consistent.
Well, you would know vacations at least, you would know vacation coverage, yes.
Let's say sick time
absentees.
coverage.
Or the other question was, I know perhaps not, but like you've got a place for salary and wages temporary, even if there was another temporary person that could sometimes fill in to cover an absentee.
Maybe on a vacation, but if someone calls in sick, it's gonna be hard to get somebody like that day to come into. My temporary people, those are my poll workers.
Yeah.
The temporary, that's there.
Just a
But
thought,
nobody
something
that could do, there would be nobody that could come in
Trained.
temporary and do
Right.
some of the
Trained
things
to do the
like,
things, get on the
because the
computer, know
training
what
is
to do.
Right.
very difficult.
Yeah. it's
right,
not
and like they
feasible.
couldn't sign a birth or death certificate.
Right.
I mean, they would have to be trained and,
I was thinking outside the box to see if there's,
Well, perhaps if next year you presented a budget and at least saw some of these coverages, if you kept track of it and said, you've got 3 weeks vacation, or whatever it is, could you give me these hours to cover the vacation, I guess?
10 weeks
That sort of thing
vacation to
at least
cover.
keep your office open on a more frequent
yeah.
basis.
The only way to keep it open is for both of us to have increased hours, so, I mean, there's always gonna, unless we both work 32 hours a week, there's always gonna be time when we're gonna be closed for sick vacation.
I guess it's just,
So I'm not presenting it on-
Yeah.
if you see it, if you see
I know,
a need,
well, I've,
do your best to present it. and-
I have, but there's always been like no personnel increase. So, and that's been for many years. We just
right.
not increased.
Well, I guess
personnel.
that would be one thing, to Gary's point then, is to see if we can somehow put back some hours, but I guess to find out what, and here it is again, as I said, I think to Deborah Rogers earlier, is there anything, and then to you also, is there anything that is not getting done right now out of the town clerk's office? Are there any
There's-
critical services that are
There's
not being provided?
No critical services except when people come in.
So it's more of a
providing the
convenience,
service.
we're not
Right.
providing it because we're not physically
Right.
there. Okay. Well, I guess, do we want to tally some numbers like Ruth had done? What would it cost to put, even if it's not 2, but 1 person back up to 32 hours? Do we want to look at those numbers, or for this year, or do we want to look at that going forward in the future?
I think we should do it now, and if we can't do it this year, then, plan ahead for next year too.
Okay, all right. Can you guys get some numbers like that? Just same thing, 32 for 1 and 32 for 2. Cool. All right, great.
Okay.
Any other
Thanks.
questions? Nope. Great. Thank you very much, Jan.